And we're live, brother. How you doing, man?
Hey, pretty good, man. Been on the road for a couple of days, man. Thought we were going to kind of catch a lull, and then all of a sudden, step away for a few days, not do a few shows, and then all of a sudden you're doing one by yourself about 9 minutes long yesterday. Kind of figuring out what's going on with this mess with Texas and Oklahoma going to the SEC. But hey, tonight we have Nick Harris, recruiting analyst from 247, joining us. We're going to sit here and probably talk a little SEC and how it's going to impact recruiting, and got some questions. So how you doing, Nick? Man, you doing pretty good tonight?
I'm doing really good. Thank you guys for having me on.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So we'll get started. I know we only have you for about 20 minutes or so definitely want to get started with the questions here. Obviously, Texas, Oklahoma to SEC. Your thoughts on UT possibly joining the SEC at this particular point in time on this Friday night?
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is definitely a positive move, for the program all around, not just football-wise. Joining the SEC for basketball or baseball or whatever, I think it's just going to make it, more competitive. And I think that's what, Chris Del Conte wanted to accomplish at the end of the day is, when he came in, obviously he wanted to overhaul some head coaches around the 40 acres. We've seen that quite a bit, but also make this team and making this program more competitive. And, this is another step in that direction. So, Texas and Oklahoma joining together in the SEC, I think that's probably a dream scenario for, a Texas athletic department member. And we're going to see how real that's going to become over the course of the next week. But, regardless, the one thing we do know is that they're out of the Big 12. Chip Brown from Horns 24/7, he does a great job over for us at 24/7 Sports, reported this morning that, no matter what happens, they're out of the Big 12. So that whether that means they go to the SEC, the Big 10, go independent, all those things are kind of on the table. But obviously the most likely option right now, probably I'd give it like an 85% chance is that, these two teams end up in the SEC. And we'll probably know that here in the next couple of weeks. But, regardless, I think this is definitely a step in the right direction.
So how do you think that changes the recruiting landscape as it sits today?
Yeah, it's a major ordeal when it comes to recruiting because you have a lot of SEC teams that are, picking who they want basically in the state of Texas. And this gives Texas that bargaining chip again. Texas A&M for the last, 10 or however many years they've been in the SEC have been able to pitch the fact of, hey, come play Texas A&M. You can stay in the state of Texas and play in the best conference in football. And sometimes I've seen that work on the basketball side of things for Texas A&M in the past as well. So it gives Texas that bargaining chip again. If you're Texas A&M, I understand the concern and I understand the impact of Texas joining the SEC because the recruiting landscape will definitely change for them. But then you also look at schools like Alabama, Florida, even Auburn, other schools that have had LSU, other schools that have had a lot of, success recruiting in the state of Texas, based on the SEC brand power. And, Texas becomes, that much more legitimate of a threat now. So it definitely helps on the recruiting side of things as well.
Absolutely, man. I couldn't. It's crazy because you start thinking about guys like Harold Perkins and the list goes. Really, Harold Perkins is the biggest thing for me. Because I think from a scheme standpoint, I think he's really excited about the scheme. But again, a guy like him is going to want to go play in probably what we consider the best division in college football, the best conference in college football, and that's bar none. I think Jeremy had a thought on that too as well.
Yeah, only because Bryce Anderson. You're talking about everything safety, corner, defensive back, who's in a head-to-head battle with A&M and Texas. That we know is probably going to be solidified this month. So this timing for that recruitment and the fact that we're playing in the SEC is totally hopefully a game changer in the case of Bryce Anderson. But I did want to go back to something you talked about, Nick, and that's the depth of the conference. When you talked about basketball and baseball as well as football, and you're talking about in basketball, the Kentuckys and the Floridas and just the depth of the conference. Generally, we were worried about Kansas, and then you found yourself in that second or third tier in basketball. And now with Chris Beard coming in, bringing all these guys, and we talked about, preseason, probably top 5 team, but the depth in basketball and then baseball itself, with the defending national champions, Mississippi State, Vanderbilt in that program, Florida, LSU, and just the trips you're going to be able to take in basketball, baseball, year round once Texas joins the SEC. But I did want to shift gears and ask you about your job. So we know we have a relationship with Mike. Mike's been on the program a couple of times, and we know you guys are very busy. How do you and Mike split up the workload? Do you do that geographically? Because I do notice that you go out of state a little bit more than Mike does.
It really just kind of depends on the kid, really. We don't have a spreadsheet, I guess, of, hey, if it's a Nevada kid, he's mine, or if he's an Arizona kid, he's mine. We just, kind of base it on who has a better relationship with the kid, and who might it be easier for to go out and see the kid. When it comes to California kids, I have quite a bit of friends in LA, so it's easy for me to just grab a flight, head out there, and get a free place to stay for a couple days. See Malik or see Nuwafe Tuhalamaka last spring, which was really cool for me. So little things like that kind of play into it. So it really doesn't. We don't really have like a set format, I guess you would say. But when it comes to like Texas kids, it definitely matters on who has the better relationship probably. And we both kind of start out whenever they're offered, and then whoever kind of like cleans more towards the other, we get a good idea of it, and just try to stay both of us on top of it.
Very cool. So it's recruit driven then. Yeah. So I noticed that you do a lot of work on the basketball side as well, and you talked about that a little bit earlier. How do you divide your time between football and basketball, especially like last week when you got a whole lot of things happening on the recruiting? You're talking to Austin Jordan commits the same week as Arteria Morris does. How do you divide your time between football and basketball?
Yeah, it was definitely a struggle. I think probably about this time last summer, when it was really starting to heat up for 2021 basketball recruiting. And, that was my first time doing both through a recruiting cycle. So, I kind of learned at that time to, figure out which is, more important at the time, and, try to, head dive into that. But now that I'm about a year in or so, I found it much more easy to juggle the two. I hope to keep doing that, throughout the course of while I'm here. But yeah, going back to last week, dealing with Arteria Morris and Austin Jordan kind of at the same time. That's a good example of just, trying to stay on top of two different things at once. And, I like the challenge. So, but whenever people ask me, what your commitment, what is it kind of divided up into, I would say probably like 75% football, 25% basketball at times. And maybe, in like the heat of the spring where, AAU is going really hard, then probably like 50-50.
Yep. So a question for you is, we had obviously a decommitment from Jalen Gilbo this week, and it seems like there's a large trend of decommitments going on. Do you think that's COVID based on not being able to visit multiple schools, or do you think that's just going to be a trend going forward as far as decommitments go?
Yeah, I think COVID certainly plays into every single recruitment here in 2022, just because it's going to be one of the bigger cycles that it's been affected on. 2021 obviously got the brunt of it when it came to COVID, restrictions and whatnot. But 2022 kids that came into the live period in June already committed. Most of them went on multiple visits. Got to sit there and think for quite a bit. And Jalen Gilbo's case, thought about his TCU visit and probably decommitted for that reason. He also took a visit to A&M as well. I think those are two, probably high contenders right now for Gilbo. Texas is going to stay in that race, and Gilbo is still, considering going to the pool party at the end of the month that Texas is going to put on for 22 and 23 recruits. But I think that's more so what happened with him. So yeah, you could say it's COVID related in a sense, because he was committed under Tom Herman. He's been committed a long time, and even when Quinn Ewers and Faison Wilson decommitted, he stayed in the class. And there's been a couple of times since Sark has been hired that, he's almost come close to, pulling the trigger on a decommitment. But, it finally happened last week. And, I think that gives both sides kind of some closure, and, so that they can both move in the directions that they want to. So it was really more so a case of, Gilbo really connecting with Jay Valai, the corners coach at Texas under Tom Herman. Valai's a high energy guy. It's kind of in your face about it almost. And, while that's, a big time, recruiting factor for some kids, it's kind of a turnoff for others. So the Terry Joseph approach of, just kind of being laid back, a little bit more chill, that's also a turnoff for some recruits, and, a high factor for others. So it really just kind of depends on the kid. Mm-hmm. And in Gilbo's instance, I think, Valai probably connected with him a little bit more. That's not to say he didn't give Terry Joseph a chance, because, he definitely did. And, I think those two still have a really strong relationship. But when it comes to the end of the day, I think TCU had a really good pitch based on, what they've been able to do with defensive backs in the last, 10 to 15 years. And, being able to go to Fort Worth and be that guy almost day one, that's hard to turn down if you're a recruit. So I don't blame the decision one bit.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so we kind of sense that the floodgates opening up in June, kids getting to that didn't have that opportunity as juniors, that had committed while COVID was going on, the moment that they got a chance to meet, establish new relationships and get on campus, that may happen. So I'm gonna shift gears to basketball. And a guy that I see from the outside looking in probably doesn't get told no very often, and that's Chris Beard. Your relationship with him, again, he's brought in 7 transfers that's put them preseason in most polls in the top 5. And now he, like we talked about a little bit earlier, he gets a top 40 guy in Arterio Morris. Have you found, what have you heard from recruits as far as their relationship with Chris Beard and how they recruit at UT basketball?
Yeah, so let's go back to when he was first hired on April 1st. And in the couple of weeks after, he put his staff together, rather quickly. And in putting his staff together, I don't know if it was intentional, but he put together a group of Avengers, it seems like, when it comes to, recruiting. Not only recruiting the state of Texas, but recruiting the entire country. Jarence Howard, Uric Malagy, Rodney Terry, and Chris Ogden, and even Bob Donewald Jr., they've all contributed to landing all of these transfers and landing Arterio Morris and getting Texas, a solid first step in recruiting the 22 and 23 classes. And when it comes to those relationships, they're calling them every day and they're just being genuine and natural. It's really not hard to recruit, in my opinion. I think that was probably going to be the biggest concern that I had whenever Shaka Smart and his staff left, is because those guys were so good at building relationships from the ground up, especially Shaka. I mean, when it comes to, recruiting kids and, connecting with them on a personal basis, there's few better than Shaka Smart out there. So that was really my concern when it came to, basketball recruiting. Would it maybe be a turnoff if Chris Beard had a different approach? And while he does have a different approach, he's still able to connect with those kids one-on-one, and the same thing with the rest of his staff. So, they haven't missed one beat. There hasn't been one hiccup. If there has been, it's been very slight. They've definitely done about everything that they could have done up to this point, but it almost concerns me because it's like nothing's gone wrong yet. So when is it going to go wrong,
Yeah, that's very true. So talking about Arterio Morris, obviously up there in the DFW area, there's another kid by the name of Keontae George, plays on the same basketball team. How do you think his commitment, Arterio Morris's commitment, affects Keontae George's as well?
Yeah, going into Arterio's commitment, I mean, Keontae was already heavily leaning towards Texas, and this definitely helps them. I mean, the only way it doesn't help them is if somehow they get on the court next season and they realize they can't play with each other. But I think Keontae is going to have his commitment locked down before that season even starts. And those kids have played with each other before, so that's kind of like an outlandish theory almost. But it certainly helps with Keontae George. If they can get both of those guys in the class and start that 22 class off with those 2 guys, sky's the limit. Sky's the limit in that 22 class.
Yeah, I guess. Go ahead, Jeremy.
No, I'm gonna go off script real quick. And going back to the barbecue, I don't know if you and Mike are allowed to cover the barbecue. I think there's certain restrictions when kids on an official visit versus an unofficial visit. I don't know what the barbecue is classified for some kids. I don't know if it's official for some and unofficial for others. But I'm sure you guys are going to be covering that as well. Plus minus on the number of commitments coming out of the barbecue pool party in your mind.
Ooh, I think that's going to be tough to say, and I would almost expect to say 0, just because I think this is going to be more so of a that's tough to say actually too, because you got guys like Bryce Anderson, Derek Brown, Jeremy Patton that are also going to be coming in for that event. I'll put it at 1.5. And I'll go ahead and take the over. I'll go ahead and take the over. But, that's going to be a big time day for, this Texas staff and, building more relationships again, one-on-one. And whenever they had the pool party for the junior day, I think it was on June 12th or June 13th, that was a really big hit with the kids that were in attendance. So I think they're going to try to, recreate some of the feelings that they had that day and, bring in some other guys that weren't even there that day. So it's a big day in, building those relationships. But I'm curious to see where recruiting in 2022 goes from now. Do recruits kind of just hold and see what happens for the next couple of months, or do they just go ahead and keep accelerating with their process? And that's something we're just going to kind of have to see over the course of the next week. That being said, Jeremy Patton and Derek Brown are still making their decisions on July 31st. And, as of now, I see both of those ending up at Texas. Things change, and we got 8 days until then. And, Baylor is right in the mix for both of those guys. They're offering both of them early playing time, and that's hard to turn down as well. So we'll definitely see how those shake out.
But I was going to ask you a follow-up question to those 2 individuals that you just named, because obviously they're both Baylor, Texas. It's kind of split between both of them. And if I'm looking at recruits, with the potential of moving to the SEC, what guys do you think it affects the most currently on the offer list or on the big board? And do you think it affects, and somebody kind of, and I don't know if this is the best way to say it, but the remnants of the Big 12, are there going to be guys that were looking at going to some of these locations and, like Baylor, like a Texas Tech, like a TCU, like Jalen Gilbo, that didn't realize, oh my goodness gracious, the Big 12 may go, fall apart altogether and no telling where we're going to be at in the next few years. Do you think that has a role to play in that at all?
Yeah, I would imagine so, because if we're thinking that, you got to imagine that recruits and recruits' families are thinking of those things, because, it's their futures that are on the line at the end of the day. And even if somehow the media contract, they just go ahead and let it expire before they make a move in 2025, then 2022 recruits will be seniors by the time that shift happens, and 23 recruits will be juniors by the time that shift happens. So while that may not be a big deal in the grand scheme of things, for those kids, that's still something that's going to happen. So yeah, that's a very good question. And that's, something I don't have the answer for right now, just because everything is so new. The last 48 hours in college football have been turned completely upside down. So, hopefully I'll be able to go out, over the course of the next month and get that answer for you. But it's certainly going to be, one of our top priorities moving forward.
Yeah. It's just crazy. Like you said, it's been crazy. 48 hours ago, who thought Texas, Oklahoma were backdooring, the SEC to try to get in, and then it sounds like the Big 12, none of the other Big 12 schools knew about it, and then it's obviously imploded at this particular point, and kind of nobody knows what's happening. But it affects the 22. I think it's going to eventually affect the 22 guys based on. But I think the answer is really going to be are they going to try to do the buyout, get out of the media rights, and try to enter the SEC faster than the 25? I think is what's going to be really the telltale sign with the 22 class. Do you agree with that, Nick?
Yeah, absolutely. And I was talking to a kid earlier today about that, and just try to, because he was just curious. It was like, what have you heard? As far as how quick this could happen. And I was like, it could happen as soon as your freshman season. It could happen as late as your senior season. So you're just going to have to wait and see. And, from that recruit's perspective, he was like, yeah, I'm definitely going to have to wait and see, because this is a huge if right now. And that would be a major contributor to my recruitment. So I think there's going to be multiple kids who have those same feelings.
And I definitely want to go back to something that we've been talking about prior to this whole move to the SEC, and that's production on the football field this fall. We've been hearing kids, again, talk about, hey, I want to see the proof in the pudding. We got a brand new staff. We want to see results this fall. So I think not only, the move to the SEC, but they're going to have to see that they're going to be able to compete when they go to the SEC. So I think growth on the football field is still paramount, and is probably the number one thing these recruits are truly looking at. And then if they see the growth on the football field and feel like they can compete for an SEC West Division championship and go play, let's say, Alabama in an SEC championship, that's probably what they're looking for first. Is that safe to say, Nick?
Yeah, absolutely. Bingo. You hit it right on the head there. The number one recruiting pitch, no matter what's going on as far as Big 12, SEC, Big 10, Sun Belt, it doesn't matter. The biggest recruiting pitch you can give a kid is on-field performance. And that's going to be paramount for the staff, especially in year one, to go out there and, make a big impression on the field, because there are multiple prospects who are just kind of sitting back and waiting to see what Texas does right now on the football field, because, the relationship is there. The scheme is there, the fit is there, but they have to make sure that they can win, because at the end of the day, these kids want to win. So that's going to be the biggest thing.
All right, I'm going to leave you one last question, Nick. Biggest takes currently right now that are not committed to Texas, that the biggest takes you think on the offer list, big board, who are guys that we need to get at the end of this recruiting cycle? Man,
I think Bryce Anderson would be a major win right off the bat going into the fall. That one's going to be really close. I see it as a toss-up at this point. It's between Texas and Texas A&M. Both schools are doing a fantastic job. Jimbo Fisher, since he has taken over that recruitment, himself at Texas A&M, it has become a much bigger battle. That would be a huge win going into the fall. Denver Harris, if they're able to win him away from Alabama, that would be ginormous. I would probably put him, number one as far as big takes and big battles to have. And then the recruitment of Harold Perkins is going to be really interesting. We talked about it a bit on Horns 24/7 last week, but I'll kind of dive into it a little here as well. I've been talking to a couple sources close to him, and Texas is doing much better than people think. And Texas is in this race just as much as Texas A&M and LSU are. That being said, this is going to be a long, drawn-out battle that will most likely go all the way into January. So they're going to have to stay the course, perform really well on the field. But he really likes the role that, Coach PK and Coach Choate have given him. And it's kind of crazy because going into his official visit, let's start the Tuesday before his official visit. He wasn't even scheduled to go to Texas. He was scheduled to go to USC. USC had canceled his visit, and so he was left with an open weekend. Texas called him, "Hey, you want to come to Austin? We'll, get you on a flight out there and Friday morning, and we can have you for an official visit this weekend." He was like, "F it, I may as well." So he did, and he went down there and he loved his experience. He loved the pitch that PK and Choate gave him, and it put Texas in a prime position to possibly win this recruitment. And the two reasons that's important: one, obviously, it's because Texas is in the race, but two, that means that another school could do the same exact thing in the fall because he still has a couple of official visits left. Yeah. So, those are really important things to remember, and Texas is just going to have to stay the course in that one. But if I had to rank top three, most wanted recruits that Texas needs in this 22 class, I'd probably go 1, Denver Harris, 2, Evan Stewart, and 3, Devon Campbell. Those are 3 guys that need 3, really good position depth, and those are 3 guys that could come in and play day one.
Absolutely, man.
I'm a big DJ Campbell. I'm a big DJ Campbell fan, offensive line guy myself. We both love defense, but I'm a guy that loves to talk trench talk. So you talking about Devin Campbell? I had him written down. I was like, he's talked about Perkins, he's talked about Anderson, he's talked about Harris. Please say something about DJ Campbell. No, man, it's been a blast. Thank you so much for joining us, Nick. I know you got places you need to be. You're a young man. It's Friday night. We want to get you there. Really appreciate your time and hope to have you on our show again.
Absolutely, man. I'd love to be on anytime. Thank you, guys.
Appreciate it, Nick. Thanks, man. Hook 'em, brother.
Hook 'em. All right,
man. That was cool, man. Nick Harris, first time on here. Let me reset what we got going on here. I've got it up there. I think it's time to talk. Obviously, we got a couple of, I believe, super chats we probably need to get to in the chat box here. One from Scott Sheridan, as usual, man. Hey, guys, huge horns here, man. I'm super excited about going to the SEC. I think this will have a big impact on 22 and 23 recruiting classes. Absolutely. I think it's really just nailing down the date in which you're leaving to give these guys really if we're moving in 22, man, it's really going to affect the recruiting class today moving forward.
Absolutely. And that's why I talked about production too, is if 22 is the move, if you're playing in the SEC next year, then like you said, you want to solidify it so these kids know where they're going to be playing, that like their parents are going to have to eventually buy airline tickets to get out to Tuscaloosa or Oxford or Starkville and make plans that are, because most of your Big 12 games are in state, when you talk about Tech, Baylor, TCU, and you very rarely have to go out of state sometimes, especially with that game in Dallas being played at the Cotton Bowl. So yeah, plans need to be made, backwards plans need to be had. But I think for the 22 class in particular, they're going to have to see progress on the field coupled with the SEC move to get a lot of the guys we were talking about in the fold, talking about the Andersons, the Harrises, the Campbells, and the Stewarts. They've told us themselves, we need to see the product on the field before we feel like Texas is the place for us. But yeah, absolutely big deal.
And we got quite a few super chats going on, man. I'll just jump on this one here. Working Man, he's on here with us every live that we do. Working Man's here, man. Hook 'em, brother. Happy, joy, man. It's funny because we I think somebody put a comment on the video that you put out yesterday about the Texas fans being divided. I don't see it that way. I don't see it that way. I feel like that from what I've seen, on Twitter, I think Twitter may be the best thing that I've come across in a long time, because over the last, if I didn't have to work, I was moving around like over the last 3 days working. I know Jeremy's been off for the last couple of days. I can imagine Jeremy's probably just Twitter, reading all these forums that keep popping up, the screenshots that keep happening. But to me, the Texas, from what I see, I think the entire family's happy. That's what I see. I don't see anybody, being not excited about going to the SEC.
No, if you go back and look at the comments from yesterday's video, the divisiveness comes from other fan bases. They come from folks that don't want us to leave the Big 12 conference. You can go back and read them yourself. I don't want to give those kind of those guys the time of day. Trolls are going to be trolls. I get it. And, I appreciate them viewing the channel. I just don't appreciate some of their comments because some of them curse. But, it's other fan bases, both within the Big 12 and the SEC, that don't like Texas either leaving the conference because they feel like Oklahoma's, and their two power players in the Big 12 have left that conference, and now those other guys are going to have to decide what they need to do. And then the SEC, there's a certain fan base out east that doesn't want us to come and steal their thunder, so they've got negative things to say. But I definitely feel like the Texas fan base is not – you're never going to have 100% buy-in to moves that you make. But I think this was what needed to be done in order to begin to recruit at the level that Alabama, Texas A&M, and those other programs that are coming in and taking the kids that we were talking about in the last 10 minutes to give you equal footing as long as you perform on the field. That's what it's going to come down to.
Yeah. Next question or next comment here from JBal7997. Again, thank you for the super chat. Appreciate it, brother. Hook 'em, man. Means a lot. No doubt this is a good move for Texas, but any chance to search college football as a whole, other conferences will be irrelevant. You want to take that one first, and I'll follow up.
With this, it's stuff that we've been talking about. And Clint, we talked to Nick off camera before we got started, and we talked about. We've been asking in our lives before. Hey, what about conference realignment? What's going to happen in 2025 when the TV deal is done? What is Texas going to do? And we just kind of kicked the can down the road. Hey, it's a 2025 discussion or 2024 discussion, and it became really real 48 hours ago. In my mind, everybody's been talking about the 4 super conferences. What I feel is going to happen is the Big 12 is going to dissolve. You're going to have the Pac-12, whatever conference that becomes, the Big 10, whatever conference that becomes, the ACC and the SEC. And they're still going to be as geographically connected as they possibly can with the Midwest taken into consideration. Does it hurt college football? I don't think so in this case because, again, you're taking 2 of the best teams from the Big 12. You're making a 16-team conference. Again, as I described the schedule yesterday, I'm not in favor of the 4-pod system. I'm in favor of Western Division and Eastern Division made up of 8 teams, 7 divisional games, 2 out-of-division games within the conference. Gives you 9 total conference games. You keep 3 out-of-conference games that can then – Texas could turn into playing Baylor or Texas Tech or somebody within the state or maybe an Oklahoma State. You can still keep 3 non-conference games. It allows you to play a championship game, which would be a full schedule that you're currently playing of 14 games, and then you find yourself in the playoff. It just the schedule is going to be dependent upon the playoff structure more than it's going to be the conferences. If you go to a 12-team playoff and you got to win 3 games or 4 games to win a national championship postseason, then your season might shorten as far as what you're looking to do non-conference and out of division. Just my thoughts. But I don't think it ruins college football.
I don't think it runs college football, but if you listen to Josh Payne last night, and I can tell you that I listened to that gentleman, me and Jeremy were listening to him last night, probably one of the best guys out there when you're talking college football. And again, I'm a guy that's always been, keep it the same, but understanding that things are going to change over time. I think where it's going to hurt at is in this really, unfortunately, we're Texas fans and Oklahoma fans, and this is really the first time I think we've gotten along and decided to do things together and shake hands and move out together, which is really cool if you think about it, man. And then we'll go back to drawing blood come here in a few weeks, But where I see it at is what happens to the current schools in the Big 12 and where do they go? Where do they go? The Iowa States, do they head to the Big 10? Does the Big 10 pick them up? Because I think eventually it's going to be 4, like Jeremy's talking about. I think it's going to be 4 large, really conferences. But if you get into it, you start doing the numbers. Are there, and I'm not going to do math here on the live, I'd have to pull out a calculator whether the case may be, but how many between 1 and 60 really Power 5 teams are there that are going to be able to give you a run for money in these super conferences? And I think that's what it comes down to. Because I think once you start getting past number 45, 50, anybody can beat anybody on any given Saturday, but at the same time, can they consistently do it across the board against really, really good teams each and every weekend?
And for me personally, a football fan, the depth of this conference is what excites me the most. I don't have to worry about, especially in football, I don't have to worry about, and I'm not knocking Kansas, but Kansas is not a good football team. I don't have to worry about too many Kansases on on the football field. Yeah, they have their Vanderbilt, I guess would be comparable, but the depth of this conference, when you're talking about a SEC West, it'd be made up of Arkansas, LSU, Texas A&M, Oklahoma, the 2 Mississippi schools. Like, that is a deep conference, when you and I think somebody broke it down on Twitter today, and they rank the top 16 teams as they currently sit. If Texas and Oklahoma are to move over, and there's a whole lot of top. We already knew the SEC dominated the top 25, and they dominated the top 10. But when you move Oklahoma and Texas was number 5 in the conference, I think, from this pile, and it was like Alabama, Oklahoma 2. And then it may have been Georgia, Florida, and then Texas was 5, followed by, I don't remember who they were right there with. It may have been Auburn. I think
LSU. I think LSU was above. And I think Florida was just behind us at number 6. I think is right where it was. If you're looking at it, and if you even look at the preseason poll and you take it by numbers and you shift it that way, you look at it and see where you fall. In that.
But but look at the team right behind you is a Florida, regardless of who it was. Whether it's who'd you say Florida and who was the other team?
LSU.
Look how deep that conference is. If Texas is the 5th-ranked team, look who's above and below them. The depth of the conference, and again, going down to DKR, Campbell Williams Field, the product every Saturday, the game day experience every Saturday. When you got SEC fan bases coming to Austin, it's going to be out of this world. You kind of saw it a little bit when game day traveled to Texas against LSU last year, non-conference, and how wild it was. But yeah, so to me, I think it's nothing but a positive. I think the fan base is probably, again, you're not going to have 100% guys pulling the rope in the same direction, but it seems to be predominantly in favor of the move.
So David Williams, man, love David Williams, man. He's always got really, really, really good information and really, really, really good, thoughtful things. He said, I hate appearing negative, and I do not dislike the potential move to the SEC, but Texas cannot compete in the SEC right now when they can't consistently reach a Big 12 championship. And I agree with that too, David. That's you're going into the best conference in football. You're going probably into the best division in college football. I'm not going to say you are going into the best conference in football. You're probably going into the best division in football. But you got to start somewhere. And to me, it's about, if you want to be the best, you got to play the best. Currently, we haven't been able to beat the TCUs, the Kansas States, the Iowa States, and we've had issues playing with teams here in the Big 12. It's just something that you're going to have to go out there and recruit like them to be successful. I think we have coaches that know what it takes to win in the SEC. Absolutely. And it's just going out there and getting those big body guys, like you were talking about in your last comment, David. If you go a little bit further up, those big body guys, and Jere Bledsoe, Amari Obor, the trench guys,
Campbell.
Yeah, those are the guys that are going to make you successful. Get a Denver Harris and a Bryce Anderson that you can put on an island and make wide receivers gain every inch that they have to have is the guys you have to play in the SEC. But to me, yeah, definitely like the move, but you're definitely going to have to recruit to get better where you're going.
And I think that's why you have to move. It's good. So in Nick said it himself. The reason you're back in the conversation with some of these kids is because of the move to the SEC. The reason you were losing the Rockemeyers to and again, Colleen asked me that today, my wife, and she was like, do you think if the Brockemeyers would have known that Texas was going to go to the SEC, would they have gone to Texas? And I answered her question with an answer, and it was Kyle Flood was the offensive line coach at Alabama when the Brockemeyers signed their letter of intent last December. And then now he's the offensive line coach at the University of Texas. And now they're moving to the SEC. Not saying, again, every situation is different. But, yeah, I think we would have been in a lot better position for the Brockemeyers had it been this coaching staff with this possible move going forward. So I think you find yourself back in the conversations for kids that are going to make you or give you the opportunity to compete with the Alabamas, the Georgias, the LSUs, and the Floridas. And without this move, I don't know if you were falling further back, because then you found yourself when you never were in the conversation with A&M for recruits. Now they're in the conversation. So I think this move is necessary for us to get those kind of athletes.
Yeah. Next one here from Jeffrey K. Clinton, German question. So we have a backload of non-conference schedules with the SEC teams in the future, Bama, Florida, Georgia. Are those going to be rescheduled? Absolutely. But again, it depends on, obviously we play Alabama home and home 22-23. If you're already in the SEC, there's a big chance that game's going to go away altogether. and then you'll just replace it with another non-conference game somewhere else with some other team.
Exactly. I've spent a lot of time listening. Me and Clint kind of talked about it. Like, we have not spent much time on the SEC network. We have not spent much time listening to Paul Feinbaum. And Clint said it. I'm on vacation, and his show runs from 2 to 6 Central. I don't miss. Since this news has come out 48 hours ago, I may have missed 15 minutes of a show. And that's what they've discussed. I mean, all that stuff has already been ironed out. Yes, if Texas does join the SEC, those games will be plucked out of the non-conference schedule. And again, it'll be part of if they play those particular teams that year, it'll be part of the conference schedule. And then you'll have open dates that you'll have to fill with other football teams.
Yeah. Talk about money, what was the reason behind the move? Obviously money is always going to be the biggest thing, man. But again, so much change has happened in college football over the last 6 months. If you think about it, you're talking about NILs happened. Conference realignment was going to happen later on down the road anyway. The way that things are happening. Somebody asked a question a while ago, what 64 teams could you put in a 64 team, what 64 teams could you put in a 64 team, really, college football? And again, a tournament. Yeah. And I don't know if you're ever going to find 64, Power 5 teams that they can play with each other week in and week out. I don't think it's possible. But I think you still have to pick up those guys like Kansas. Kansas is probably going to go to the Big Ten as a basketball school. West Virginia probably going to get picked up by the ACC if the ACC thinks they need to grow a couple more teams. They got Notre Dame is probably going to stay independent. Pac-12s, to me, you pick up Texas Tech. They're the western side of Texas. They join a league with Utah, Arizona, and Arizona State. But I think as far as finding 64 teams, 18 teams across multiple, 4 conferences or whatever that number of matches or equals up to, I don't think you're going to have guys like Cincinnati and UCF that are going to join conferences to make that 16 teams. Just the way it's going to work.
Yeah, I mean, and it's nice. Again, I like the Big 12 schedule structure where you got a chance to play every team in your division, and the championship game is always going to be a rematch because you played every team. But I even like I said, the cross-divisional matchups as well. When the Big 12 used to be divided in the North and the South, and you were vying against Oklahoma every year to be the South representative, and whether it was Nebraska or Colorado at the time, it's going to be the North representative. That's the kind of look you're going to get with the SEC. And again, you're not going to play the same teams every year. You're going to get an Alabama every 3 or 4 years at DKR because you're going to have to go to Tuscaloosa, and then they're going to be off your schedule for 2 years. And so it's going to make, again, those game day experiences and the depth of that conference is going to make each and every Saturday mean something. There's going to be no days off. Like again, we were losing to TCU. David hit the nail on the head, and that's why we got to get better. And I think moving to this conference, the best conference in college football, is going to allow us to get better. And like you said, it's all about money. I mean, I think I heard a figure today that each SEC team makes $20 million more a year than the average Big 12 team. So again, it's going to bring money back to the institution. They're going to put it back in the infrastructure, hopefully, back in the athletic department. It's going to make even a better game day experience for basketball, baseball, and all those other sports that we get to enjoy there on the 40 acres.
It's funny because I was talking to my son this morning. He sent me a message because obviously he follows college football too, and he knows I do this show. And he kind of sent me this message this morning. He's like, "I'm not sure about. I'm not sure if it's a good move for us to go to the SEC." And I just broke it down to him like this, man. At the end of the day, you want to play against the best. And Jeremy keeps talking about game day experiences. Who the hell doesn't want to go to Tuscaloosa, Alabama for a road trip? Who doesn't want to go to Death Valley at nighttime and play in Knoxville and play in LSU and go play between the hedges? You know what I'm saying? To me, it's just, think about it. And I'm not going to make disparaging remarks towards, going to Lubbock or going to Baylor or going up to Fort Worth and playing an Amon Carter, but at the same time, it's not the same atmosphere you're going to get each and every week playing these games. And again, it's funny because you'll hear guys, will say, well, it's crazy because the University of Texas guys have been talking so much trash about the SEC. And, to me, it wasn't so much that it wasn't about the SEC, because SEC came across as if they were remained unbeaten against everybody else that played them outside of the SEC. Everybody knows they're the best conference in college football. I think the problem with the SEC is they thought that they were much better than everybody else and couldn't be beaten each and every week by a team, and I've seen that before.
In this channel, and we respect good football, regardless of what conference or which team it comes from. Mm-hmm. We're always going to respect sound, complementary football. And how, like you said, they have the best athletes in the country. So it comes a little bit easier to them, and it should, because what allowed them to get those athletes was production in the past. Like, they continue to win. Kids want to go there because they see that they're going to win and they're going to get picked in the NFL. That's why they're so good. But we've always respected the Alabamas, the Georgias, the Floridas, the LSUs, and those guys for their brand of football. Joe Burrow and that team, the LSU team that traveled here, and that was a nail biter. That was the toughest game they had all year. When we've gone up against Alabama in the past, and again, we've always played well against those teams. When we played Georgia in the Sugar Bowl, mano a mano. Yeah, they may say that they didn't play their full deck, but again, every time we've been matched up with the SEC, I think we had a good account of ourselves, even in the 10-year struggle that we've had since Mac left. But I think every time we've gone against an SEC team, we've shown that we can play with them. And I don't think it's going to be any different. But I do think we have to grow before we step on the field and expect to be able to compete for championships. Absolutely. Going back to David's point, is we're a couple of notches away from being able to compete for those top titles.
Yeah. So Tempe, the move is about the same for UT, 3rd or 4th in the Big 12. In the future, they'll finish 4th or 5th in the SEC. I'm not sure where you're from, Tempe, but obviously each and every week we're going to go out there and try to win football games, man. Our job is not to think each and every year we're going to go in there and say, okay, cool, we're in the SEC, let's go ahead and finish 4th or 5th. I don't think Texas is ever going to be like that. Hell, in Texas's worst decade in the last 10 years, they're probably better than 70% of people, 70% of the other college football teams in college football. Think about that. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, I'm never going to raise the flag and say, yippee, we were marginal to average for the last 10 years. That's not where we want to be at. And I think this move will help you not with just recruiting, but become better teams, man. Be a better team. Knowing that, you're going to have to fight each and every week against another team. There is no down opponent in the SEC. You're going to have to treat everybody as if it's your best shot, best game each and every weekend. And I think that's what makes teams better. I think it's what makes teams better.
Absolutely. So, and again, we're Texas fans. We make no bones about it. I have a Texas number 7 icy white jersey on. Clint has a T-shirt on that represents the University of Texas. Absolutely. But we appreciate good football. And to us, it's the slogan of our show is we talk ball. To us, it doesn't matter about the politics. It doesn't matter about the money. It's lining up our 22 dudes against your 22 dudes on a Saturday and trying to beat you. And that's all it's ever been for us. So that, and that's, we're not expressing negativity because, like I said, we've been beat up over the last couple of days, and more than we've been beat up over the past year, but it's been from other fan bases, not from our own. So it comes with the territory, and I think that's why we're excited to move to the SEC as well, because you've got passionate fan bases like out there that are going to be in our DMs and our Twitter. They're going to be on our remarks of our videos, and we appreciate that. But it's always been, regardless of how the football team plays, we're going to come on after the show, and the guys have watched us for a while know we're going to talk real after the football game, good, bad, or indifferent. We're going to be honest. And like Clint said, we've been average. But, again, our average is better than probably 70% of Power 5 teams out there. Go talk to the organization. And I don't want to call teams out, but you know what the records look like. You know what the standings look like.
Yeah. Lando 7448, think about this. A&M was a 500 team in the Big 12 in 3 years in the SEC. They have become 8-10 win teams in the SEC, started with the Manziel years. You know what I'm saying? So they came from the Big 12, just like we were coming from the Big 12 to the SEC when it's hammered down. Let's stop saying that when we get there. Because the speculation is it sounds like there's a move going to happen. It sounds like there was a vote that was going to happen, and then all of a sudden right before the vote was supposed to happen, the AD and the football coach from the team out east were prepared to make a statement when the Houston Chronicle came out with a story to kind of stop it or slow roll the situation that was about to happen. And that was to be votes be taken to allow Oklahoma and Texas to get an invite to join the SEC. Do I think we're on the precipice? Absolutely. I think Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, sometime next week, I think there will be a vote. The invite goes out. Either Texas accepts or they don't accept. Somehow, I guess some one of the staffs has already hired a realignment group to help them make the move to their next location. I don't know which one that is, maybe Oklahoma or Texas. But I think it's possible. You know, iron sharpens iron. You go play good teams, you got to be good. You got to be good or better. You know, hell, Alabama. If you go look back at Alabama, man, they've been rolling like a damn freight train for the last 10 years, right? But go look at them prior to that. You know, college football is cyclical. You get on a run, you get really good, you get good recruits, 5-star after 5-star after 5-star. You're going to have a successful program. But it starts with coaches and recruits.
Trying to monitor the chat.
You are?
Yeah. Again, I like the back and forth. Again, like we can talk about conference records. Again, the past is the past. If we walk into the SEC, to me, you start anew, just like you just talked about, you know, with A&M's accomplishments in the Big 12, the one title they got when they beat Kansas State on the Sir Parker, you know, overtime sweep. Watched that game just the other day. And then they walked into the SEC and have found themselves now, as of last year, competitive for a chance to play in the championship game. It didn't work out for them. Again, they got to go up against Alabama, the same juggernaut we'd have to go up against if we find ourselves in that conference. But again, this 22 team or this 21 team cares less what the 2010, 2015, 2018, or the 1970 team did against anybody. What you have to do, and again, this coaching staff probably feels the same way, is my 22 are going to go against your 22 on this Saturday, and we're either good enough or we're not. And that's the way I look at it. Like Steve Sarkisian shouldn't pay for Tom Herman's and Charlie Strong's transgressions. He has his own staff, he has his own players, and they'll go against the Big 12 this year and maybe the SEC next year, and they're going to try to put the best product on the football field, made up of the best players to compete with whatever opponent happens to roll out there on Saturday. And as a Texas fan, all I can ask is for them to do their very, very best.
Yeah. A couple more thoughts on this OU, this Texas OU move. My apologies, saying OU first, shouldn't have done that. Texas OU moved to the SEC, and then we'll move on to something else that I think is quite funny too. That kind of came out, may not matter at this particular point, but you know. Again, David Williams, agreed with the point you were all making. I think the move to the SEC now with the current coach staff will push players to compete and work harder, than they have in the Big 12 the past decade. I think it's all about a sense of entitlement type of deal. You're not entitled to anything. You know, you're going into a conference, man, that's already established. It's got teams, man, that are consistently in the top 5. 3, 4, 5 teams that are consistently in the top 10. You're not entitled to anything there, man. You're going to have to go there as if you're a Group of 5 school that's going into a new conference, and you're going to have to make a name for yourself. That whole sense of entitlement thing, hey, we're the University of Texas, we got more money than everybody else. We got, this and this and this. It's not going to work there in the SEC. It's not, man. That football has been around a long time there, man. Those programs have been established for a long time. I think that's the mentality we have to take as fans as we move over there. There is no sense of entitlement. You're going to have to earn everything that you get each and every week, and you're going to have to earn your keep over there versus, really owning your own conferences. Texas and Oklahoma have owned the conferences. If you think about it, Texas has owned it since the Southwest Conference. Oklahoma owned the Big 8. Then they came together, became the Big 12. They owned those conferences. So that entitlement was there. I think when you move to the SEC, you got to push all that stuff away and realize, hey, you're just another team there. You're another team, and you got to earn your keep. And until you earn your keep, you're no better than the Vanderbilts or the Ole Miss or the Mississippi States. Your thoughts on that, Jeremy?
No, you're there to compete. You're there to compete. Regardless of again, you cannot, we've talked about this in the Big 12, so it definitely sings paramount when you're talking about moving to the SEC. You can't roll your helmet out there against TCU and expect to win football games. You can't roll your helmet out against Iowa State and win football games. You got to go there. You got to recruit the best players. It's pretty simple. You got to recruit the best players. You got to develop the best players. You got to scheme up the best players. That's what has to happen in order to win football games, regardless of what conference. And again, Texas athletes are right there with California and Florida is producing the upper echelon of college football athletes. Keep them in state. The guys we were talking about earlier with Nick Harris, keep them in state, develop them, and you're going to find yourself in a position when you were in 2009 when you played Alabama in the national championship game, Colt McCoy's injury, and where you found yourself when you played USC. if you continue to bring the best players, develop the best players, you're going to find yourself in a position where you want to be. But you're right. You haven't proved anything or earned anything. So that needs to be your mantra each and every day.
Think about the rivalries, man. That again, if and when they sign the paperwork, the contract's done, Texas goes to Texas and Oklahoma head, east and go play in the Southeast Conference. Think about the rivalries, man. Think about those rivalries. Alabama.
Talked about it yesterday.
Alabama, Auburn. You know what I'm saying? Texas A&M is now a renewed rivalry. Texas, Oklahoma.
Gets to stay.
Hell, Texas, Arkansas.
Gets
just
renewed.
like us. Hell, Oklahoma, Missouri. It's renewed. And then
let's start one with LSU.
Another one, LSU. Starting up with LSU, man. Who doesn't want that like every weekend, man? That is that's college football. That's college football.
That's what's got my excitement level up. Again, the product is going to be better because you're going to have to get better to be able to compete. So again, you're going to be vying for the same kids that you already are. I mean, go look at these offer sheets from 247. You click on Denver Harris, Alabama, Texas A&M. The same guys we're talking about playing LSU, the same teams we're talking about playing in the SEC are his offer list. Bryce Anderson, same way. Devin Campbell, same way. Harold Perkins, same way. All these kids' lists consist of the same teams that we're talking about competing with when we move to the SEC. And guys are talking about it's not a done deal. There's not this much smoke from this many different outlets. The SEC channel has been running it for 8 straight hours since I had started watching it from 2 to 6 yesterday. And from 2 to 6, that's all they talked about. If it wasn't a deal, don't you think the SEC network would have told, or Disney would have told the SEC network, chill out on the Texas Oklahoma talk? Not sure it's a done deal. They probably would have squashed it, in my mind. So I think
Mickey Mouse is in charge of all this, man. That's what's crazy to me. Mickey Mouse is running all of this. That's crazy to me. They own 70% of I think I read it today. They own like 80% of something they control. They have 80% control. Disney does of ESPN. So Mickey Mouse is calling all the shots, man, on college football. If you think about it, which is
on the Longhorn Network.
Crazy. Yeah, it's crazy. How important is this question, man? How important is this Arkansas Texas game, man? Here in about 2 months. To make it more important?
Make it. I think we talked about it, and we're probably going to talk about it when we do our season preview show. Is this administration, and we kind of talked about it earlier with Nick, is you could talk all this SEC talk you want. You could tell all these kids, hey, we're moving out of this conference that you said you didn't want to play in because, as somebody said a little bit earlier about Princely Uniluminian, the kid who went to Florida, who said 3 productive sacks at Florida is better than a 5-sack game at Texas. You didn't want to play in the Big 12 because you thought it was a lesser conference. You're not going to be able to sell to move to SEC if you're not playing well. So more than Arkansas, I think this team has to win the games they're supposed to win, and Arkansas is one of those games. Yes, I understand that it's a night game on the road in Fayetteville. Your second game under a new coach with probably a quarterback, I know a quarterback, who's getting his second collegiate start because neither Casey nor Hudson have started a football game at the University of Texas. It's more about winning a football game versus the opponent because you want to set your season off on the right trajectory to sell these kids. We are progressing week to week. We're getting better. We're going to be able to compete when we get over there because I don't think the two have to be together.
I think the buildup is going to be huge. I think the buildup, if it's no doubt, if it's done deal that Texas is going to head to the SEC and it's going to be way before 2025. Obviously, a game this year in 2020 to 2021. If they decide we're going to go to 2025, which I can't see, it's like breaking up with your ex-girlfriend and living with you for an extra couple of months. That's a little weird. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Or you put your 2 weeks notice in and you want to hang out for the extra 2 weeks and your job is like, absolutely the hell not, dude. You can hang out 3 days, 4 days, do a right seat, left seat, and then you got to go because it's just awkward. And we're not going to do anything. You're not doing anything but YouTubing anyway, right? And checking your phone and doing social media all day. So I don't think they're going to hang out until 2025. But to me, it's going to be the build up to that game. That's going to be huge, man. Texas coming into the SEC, now playing a perennial, not going to say perennial SEC team, but a team in Arkansas at night in Fayetteville, Arkansas. What does Texas look like against Arkansas? Because they're moving to the SEC the following year. I think that's what's going to be all about. If
Yeah.
you're talking about the guy that was on the SEC channel today, Paul Feinbaum, he was like, please send us to that game in Arkansas, because they're going to SEC channel's trying to get it there for that game as well. Because I think it's going to be the buildup, man.
It's
a new SEC
test.
team in Texas. Yeah, going in favor of Arkansas.
Yeah, it's a litmus test. Again, why wouldn't SEC Network want to go? Steve Sarkisian, a brand new coach, University of Texas, just left Alabama, took half their coaching staff, and now they're potentially 95% done, going to go to the SEC. Absolutely, they want to hype it up, and they should hype it up. And Texas should be ready to play. Again, I believe that Texas should win that football game. I have picked Texas to win that football game. Haven't had our prediction show yet, but I pretty much said I believe the losses this year to Iowa State on the road and Oklahoma in the Cotton Bowl. Why? Because 20 out of 22 starters for Iowa State coming back against the team that beat us in Austin last year. Will it be a close game? I believe it will be. And then you're talking about a top 5 perennial Oklahoma team that's going to be competing for a national championship that has the pieces there to compete for a national championship. Both games are going to be nip and tuck. I believe we're going to be in all games in play, but you got to beat Arkansas. But you got to beat Arkansas not because you're going to the SEC, because you're a better football team than Arkansas. But yeah, is there going to be chatter around it? Absolutely. There will be, and there should be.
Real quick, I just want to go to this question here it's really not a question, really a statement, I guess, from IT Mac Pro. Dang, the amount of pressure the fans and pundits put on this team is just crazy. I think it comes down to again, expectation management, right? The problem with what we've had is it's hard to develop players, 5-star, 4-star players, when you have coaches that come in every 3 years. Your rotation of coaches is killing the development of players. That's bottom line up front. But at the same time, you expect the coaches that come in here to be able to do something with their roster and not regress from 2018 Sugar Bowl to losing to teams you shouldn't lose to based on talent. And I think that's what it is. If you look at the composite, I think right now, last year we were number 5. I think this year somewhere like about 6 or 7. When you look at the talent on the team, when you have the 6th best talent in the country, you should be playing to that talent level. So the expectations are there. I think there's expectation management, and that's where it goes back to my expectation of us going into this year, 2-loss team. That's it, 2-loss team. To me, you lose to the teams that are better on paper than you, or have more people coming back than you, or you have to go to Ames, Iowa and play Iowa State, who has like 21 or 22 starters returning, in a night game. That's a scary game, game that you probably have a good chance of losing. But my expectation going into the SEC is, again, somebody said it, walk quietly, hold a big stick. You go in there and you have to earn your keep there, man, with those teams. And that's my expectation. Do I think they're going to go walk in day one to the SEC and win a championship? Hell no. There's too many good teams there. They got to go build their roster up to get to that point. You know what I'm saying? Do I think they can play well against SEC teams each and every week? Absolutely, because they have the talent to do so. But expectations at the University of Texas are high. They're high, but they also have to be managed in certain situations as well.
Again, you hit the nail on the head, I think, man. Like, expectations come from recruiting polls that say you're a top 3 or top 5 class, and then you get there, and then, like you said, the turnover of the coaches has inhibited them from growing. Again, we talked about DeMarvin Overshown playing for 3 different defensive back coaches, and then finally moving down to linebacker. And go back and watch our stuff. For you guys that are new to watching us, like, we talk about all this stuff, and I want to say they're excusable losses. I think the 2 losses that are excusable are Oklahoma and Iowa State. The other ones, again, manage expectations. You guys think 2 losses. Again, Tim B, you're 8-4, but I know you don't respect us because the way you keep writing UT lowercase. I get it, man. You just want to be heard. We want to be heard too. This is our channel. We believe they're going to be 10-2. We've told you that multiple times now. And why we believe that? Because we've done the analytics. We've talked to the kids. We understand where this program is, I believe. May they be 8-4? May they be 9-3? Absolutely. But we have the right to say we believe they're 10-2, and this is why. Just like you got the right to say they're 8-4.
Absolutely. Do I think 8-4? Do I think 8-4 is a possibility? Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Do I think they're seasoned quarterbacks coming back with other teams? Absolutely. Do I know that we have two quarterbacks that haven't played more than a couple of quarters in a football game in a given game in a given season? Absolutely. We know there are flaws out there, but do I think the defense is going to be much more improved than they were last year? From Chris Ash to Pete Kwiatkowski? Absolutely, because if you go back and look at it, we have one sophomore that sits there in the defensive backfield in Jaron Thompson. Everybody else is either a junior or senior. Do we have issues at linebacker? Absolutely. But I think our defensive line is probably one of the best in the country? You just wait and see. We'll see. I think 8-4 is plausible, but I think 10-2. So if we want to meet in the middle, 9-3 may be the case. But is 9-3 a bad season with a brand new coaching staff, with a brand new starting quarterback? Absolutely not. But that's also expectation management.
But he doesn't know who if we picked the starter yet, so he doesn't watch Texas football anyway. But I do want to shout out Abel, our buddy from the spring game. Can't wait to see the ESPN documentary of CDC restoring Texas. The man is beast. AD. Again, we've talked about that. Jay Hartzell established a relationship with this channel when we were brand new babies, when we had maybe 100 subscribers to our YouTube channel and maybe 10 followers to our Twitter channel. And him and CDC work tirelessly with every single program on the 40 acres to put them in the best position to succeed on a national front. So I totally agree with Abel's sentiments about Jay Hartzell, about CDC and where they're taking this program. And I trust them, with the hires that he's made across the board with Chris Beard, Mike White, David Pierce, and all the folks, Vic Schaefer. I believe in CDC. I believe in Jay Hartzell, and I believe they're going to put us in the best chance to succeed. And I think this move is one of those things.
And it's not just those three. It's obviously the big name boosters, that are involved, that are all together. Somebody said it today. I think I seen in a tweet that the previous president, was more concerned about the Big Ten and the Pac-12 because that's where they came from. This guy's actually a University of Texas guy that cares about football. And Jay Hartzell is a president, and they're going to do everything to ensure that they've flipped whatever over or to make sure that they've dotted all the I's across all the T's to make sure that Texas gets back to where they should be in college football, man. That's important to me. I think the administration currently is crazy, and I think at the end of the day, I think somebody said today, when we're going to put the CDC statue up on the campus. You know what I'm saying? So he's done a hell of a job, man. I know people are looking to terminate him in January. I'll go back and find the tweets, man. I'll go back and find the tweets. You look November, December, people are looking at terminating CDC because they couldn't get Urban Meyer to be your head coach. I'm gonna go back and find some of those tweets, man, and I'm just gonna go through them on the show one of these days, man. I actually may copy and paste and post them up on here because there were some people that wanted to fire CDC in November or December of last year over a head coach that probably wasn't even going to come back and coach college football anyway. Probably just trying to get as much money as he possibly can through some kind of his agent or whatever the case may be. So I got to find this agent.
I did want to go back. I did want to go back and talk to Working Man, and thank you for that $5 super chat because I do want to say that this has been one of those weeks that's kind of been eye-opening to us in this channel about how fired up this season is probably going to be. And I say that because Working Man attends a lot of times during the season. We were asked initially in the beginning of last year to open up a chat during the football games where folks that wanted to discuss the game in real time could. And so me and Clint won't find ourselves on there. We'll basically just open up the chat room, but we'll monitor it to make sure that people are not going crazy and cursing and being disrespectful. But Working Man was one of those guys who was constantly going back and forth with Johnny Munoz, another guy who's a contributor to the channel, consistently during those in-game chats. So we'll definitely be providing those for guys that are new to the channel and this is your first time watching us. Pre-game shows probably around Thursday because we promised ourselves we're going to catch a lot of Friday night games, high school games. Saturday post-game shows, but an in-game chat at the same time. But yeah, just thank you, Working Man, for that $5. Wanted to give you a shout out and tell you all that those things are probably going to come back this year.
Yeah. Hey, really quick. There's 108 people in here, and there's 39 likes. So if y'all wouldn't mind hitting that like button, me and Jeremy would greatly appreciate it. If you did not go see the latest video that Jeremy did solo yesterday, go check that out. Did a really good job there. Me and Jeremy don't like to do the whole solo thing. It's not fun for us. It's not something we want to do. But I was on the road working, and Jeremy's like, "Hey man, we definitely need to do a show." He put together, I think, about a 9-minute show, 9-minute show. Talking about some of the things we talked about tonight about, Texas and Oklahoma, maybe SEC bound. So go check that out. You check that out. And then for those that maybe join us tonight that never joined us, I'm telling you, we've gained quite a few subscribers over the last month. So if you're new to the show or haven't never seen any of our lives, we try to be interactive as possible, man. We really do. We try to get questions up here. We try to really run our shows like that. But every once in a while, we try to get guests in here. Nick Roach, Mike Roach, Nick Harris. Sometimes players, commitments, and so on and so forth. So if you haven't seen us doing this before, hey, come join us. We try to do multiple lives a week. I'm gonna tell you, once it gets into the season, definitely 2 lives a week and then multiple shows. But hey. Lando said I'll drop $100 to the channel for the TCU game. So we appreciate it, man. Kayla Mills, man, we see you on here. Hey, thanks for joining us tonight. Great show. Appreciate you. Thanks for joining us. We appreciate each and every one of y'all joining us. You got something to add, Jeremy?
Yeah, I mean, you hit the social piece, you hit the like button, you hit the subscribe button. I was going through our analytics, and not a lot of guys have hit the reminders, because I don't think we ever push the notifications, but we do 5-6 shows a week. And I'm not sure that everybody knows sometimes when we're going on, because we try to have a schedule. We try to talk about when we're coming on, but sometimes, like yesterday, we decide it's big news and we need to come on air. So yeah, please hit that notification bell if you haven't as well. So you know that we're coming, because again, there's a chance if we line an interview up, like you said, with a player or guys from 247 or anybody else, we'd like for you to know that we're on air, and so that you have an opportunity to join us. But no, hell of a show. Really appreciate Nick Harris coming in for that first segment. Again, I'm as fired up as I have been in a long time. And again, it's because of the product on the field. I believe we're in the best chance. Because again, I look at the kids. We developed relationships with a lot of these kids, both on campus and the current recruits. And I just want them to do well. And
Appreciate Tim B, man, putting that like up there, man.
Yeah, appreciate you being in attendance, and having comments. We may not agree, but again, we're pretty fiery personalities, and it seems like you are too, and you're passionate about what you think, and there's nothing wrong with that as long as everybody's respectful of each other. But yeah, just fired up, man. What are we, 40? What they say, 42 days away? Marcus Bibbage days away. Caleb Blewett days away from football.
Yeah, so I think I'm going to try to line up, I think our next show, before we get off here, I'm going to see if I can line us up a SEC, maybe a podcast or a YouTuber that does SEC football, maybe something like Georgia or Florida or a Alabama. Maybe we try to link up something, maybe LSU. Maybe we try to link up with those guys and maybe get them on the show and tell us maybe they'll give us their thoughts about us actually coming to the SEC. Maybe y'all would like to hear a little bit of that. So I think I'm going to try to work on that, see if I can find somebody, maybe hit them up in their DM, and we'll kind of go from there. But hey, we appreciate you listening as always. Hopefully you enjoy the rest of your weekend. Like I said, if you haven't hit that like button, please hit that like button. If you have not subscribed, please hit that subscribe button. You can follow us on Twitter at TX Football Talk, on Facebook at TX Football, or it's on Twitter at TX Football Talk, on Facebook at TX Football Talk, and on Instagram at TX Football Talk. We appreciate you listening as always, and hook 'em.
Hook 'em.